Hello, I'm Cheryl Craig, and I'm happy to be here presenting a lecture on behalf of the International Study Association of Teachers and Teaching. And I'm very pleased to be at this International Forum on Teacher Education. And my topic today is turning points in research and life, the peripeteia of our times. And so I'd like to discuss this topic with you because I think it's very, very timely for us at this particular time, a world moment at this time. I'd like to begin by saying thank you to Kazan Federal University for inviting me to your conference, which is well known as IFTE. And I really do love your new topic, teacher education, new challenges and goals, because I think we've been dealing with challenges this past 2 years that are right up there with the challenge of the Depression. Again, I'm Cheryl Craig. I'm chair of the International Study Association of Teachers and Teaching. We're an international group. We're nearing 50 countries. We are also nearing our 40th anniversary, which will be we'll celebrate in 2023 in Bari, Italy. We began in 1983. So what's a peripeteia? Well, it's a turning point. It's a sudden reversal. It's an unseen change that happens to us. Oh, have we not had one of these unseen changes? COVID-19, look at it, how it's just boomeranging all over the world, and it's a problem here, and then it's a problem there, and then it's all over the place. And this country didn't have a problem, but now another country does. And our dear friend Tara Ratnam in India, she was telling me the other day, she's afraid to breathe the same air as anyone else. And so I couldn't make it to Kazan, Russia for your 2020 conference. And I did a Zoom lecture and here I am in 2021. I thought for certain I would be able to be with you. And here I again doing a Zoom lecture. And here, I hope you're seeing, these are the blue bonnets. These are the spring flowers of Texas. So behind me, I have blue bonnets and Indian paintbrushes is what they call them. Well, where does this peripeteia come from? Well, it's an ancient Greek word. It was first introduced by Aristotle, and the term was borrowed by Jerome Bruner. And peripeteias are foundational to the narrative turn in research. And we've definitely had a narrative turn in research that has happened. And the term of a peripeteia refers to experiences that totally upend people, ourselves and others. And they transport us from the normal, the expected, and the taken for granted. And they take us to places previously unfathomed. And I think probably we could include in here the 100-year storms that we had in Houston. We had an ice storm in an area, a snowstorm in an area where snow was pretty much unheard of. And we have the volcanoes going on in Iceland. And of course, we have a shooting in Kazan, which we would never believe would happen. But these are the kinds of surprises that surprise us and they sadden us. And it's a prime example of the incomprehensibility of these moments that peripeteias cause. I would like to take up this notion of a peripeteia within my research program. And I would like to talk about what we talk about as peripeteias in the literature and so forth, actually how they become experiences for teachers. And how this comes from what others are saying is kind of a bland kind of reform, but how does it get into the lifeblood and the minds and the hearts of teachers? So to talk about this, I'm going to talk about 6 reforms that happened in an urban middle school in the literacy department. Now, there's many teachers in this department, 15 or 16 each year. I've been in the school for 22 years. I'm going to talk over 20 years. Daryl Wilson was with me from the beginning till he's already gone. Laura Curtis, I was with her for 16 years. And Anna Dean, I worked with her for 6 years. And I never, ever anticipated she would be a teacher attrition statistic, but she ended up being one. So I'm going to think about the idea of a peripeteia within this school with what was happening across these 6 reforms. And so we'll reflect on it, and then we're going to analyze it. So Jerome Bruner uses it, peripeteia, as a heuristic. The literacy folks would call it a trope. But what we're really interested in, especially me being Schwabian, how do these peripeteia become experiences? How do these odd things that we don't think would ever happen, when they happen, how do they get taken into us? So it's going to be the role of peripeteia in 6 reform movements. And you can see I'm moving from 1997 to 2017. And we're going to move from standardized teaching method all the way up to pay for performance. These reform movements came from various places. This one came from the state. It was standardized teaching methods, and that every teacher would use models of teaching. It was imposed on the teacher. A person from the state would come into your classroom and say, today, Dr. Craig, you're going to teach such and such using Socratic method, or inquiry process, or synectics. And you would, on the spot, take the content that you had ready to go, and that you would teach it through that message. Well, the problem is that there was no room for variation. Each teacher did it differently. But the state wanted them to do it cleanly, not creatively. And that was how it explained. And so here we have a teacher responding to it said, school reform is the monkey's paw. It comes to you like a gift, but it really isn't a gift. It holds many ironies for teachers. And if you look along the left-hand side, there's the ironies. We expected great growth, but the consultant who came to the school left. 20 teachers out of 85 in that school left, or pardon me, they were removed. They were on a list that was given to the principal, and she had to get rid of them. And the principal so much disliked it and retired. So let's move on to reform number 2. What happened? Same school, same people. Well, we now have something coming from the school district. And it's the requirement that all schools have professional learning communities, which are a potentially good idea. However, when you force people to have professional learning communities and not the natural communities that teachers have, you have a problem. And so here's Laura, and this is how she explained it. We've gained a lot, but we've lost a lot too. I became unhappy when I realized it was being forced on us, and I began to feel like a butterfly under a pin. A lot of us were feeling that way. I was very uncomfortable with the demeanors of our staff developer and our principal. It was making me feel not in charge of my own teaching, when throughout my career, I have felt in charge. So what happened between 2002 and 2006? 4 teachers left, 1 assistant principal left, and the principal left. We're now moving on to 2007, 2009, Standardized Teaching Readers and Writers Workshop. And here is I am speaking to the department chair. It seems to me I start to try and make sense of one clash, and lo and behold, another happens. It's a saga, he tells me. You'll never be done. Next year, we'll see what happens when the consultant is gone. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't even begin to imagine. Well, the consultant managed to disturb, as he said it, an otherwise calm year. She triggered a second major incident, a head-on collision, and that teacher refused to be handcuffed to her version of workshop. So what happens? One teacher leaves, 4 teachers leave, 4 more leave, the principal leaves, and the consultant leaves. Let's move on to Organized Reform 4, 2009 to 2012. And I'm speaking with now Anna Dean, the beginning teacher. This is what she told me. I was learning to teach in the eye of the storm. Where the school district was concerned, smart teachers were neither tolerated nor appreciated. The teachers should not have to put up with things forced down their throats. Not allowing a teacher to have ownership is very degrading. So what happened after the eye of the storm for Anna Dean? Well, Anna Dean left the school. She quit teaching altogether. Then she came back, and when she came back into the profession, she went to Beijing Trial, and then she went to near Windsor Castle in England, and she continues to teach there. And so what happened here is we started to see the students' test scores being integrated into the teachers' evaluations, and that is what drove Anna Dean away. When we get to Organized Reform number 5, this is an interesting one. It came from the school district, but maybe not the school district. It's not sure that the school district had to buy expendable workshops for every student. They were $50 each. There was believed to be somewhere between a 3 and 5 year contract. They actually were workbooks, but the school was a readers and writers workshop school. And so everybody had these workbooks, but nobody was real happy with them. The parents found them very heavy, and they didn't want their children to carry them around in their backpacks to injure their backs. The students found them clumsy and hard, and I think basically the students preferred using the novel sets and such. And the teachers, they tried the workbooks out. They weren't really. They preferred to do their own kind of teaching and such, but they weren't like really down on the workbooks. So what happened was they had to have them in the school all the time. And where were you going to put them? Because they're very small rooms. So what they did is they would put the book sets at the front and the workbooks behind. Or they had a bin or a basket in the room, and at the bottom were the workbooks, and then on top were the book sets, or they had kind of curtains behind shelves. And so if you open the curtains, then you could find where the workbooks were. So the metaphor that was used here was hidden in clear view. And at one point I did ask the principal, what's going on here with these workbooks? And she said, our school's doing relatively well with the reading and writing test scores, and it's not a big problem. And so, if everybody's happy with doing the novel sets, then, really I shouldn't impose the workbooks on them. And so that's what happened. But both of the workbooks, both of the choices were testing company produced materials, which means they were, authorized, the best fit for testing. And then we come to standardized pay for performance, which was with value added measures to it. Which means that there was money given by the school district, but the school also had a portion that they could give to different teachers. So in that school, there was the championship orchestra music teacher. He got $500. But the stellar mathematics teachers were getting $5,000, you see. So, the tested subject versus the not tested subject, the hard subject versus a soft subject. But anyways, this is what the pay for performance, which really fractured the teachers, and it got to the point where the department chair said to me, "There's nowhere to go from here. Data is God." And actually, it turned out that the data is God did in fact catch him. Because he was coming in, they lost yet another principal, 7 of 9 he'd had in his career. He lost another principal that year, but the new one, when she came in, she didn't even wait to see him teach or anything like that. She removed his department chair affiliation from him and just embarrassed him, and that was the end of his career. But that person, a beginning principal, didn't even see him teach. And it happened to other teachers as well. And so what we see here is from a policy perspective, we see that we have a school district that has a shortage of teachers that is using the way that all of these reforms are coming through. They're not things that are sustaining teachers. They're driving them away. And no one is paying attention to that side. And so what we have is a major loss of human effort and potential for relatively minor gains in practices. And we saw that right from the beginning. It's the monkey's paw. It's a mixed bag. We don't know what we're getting. But the one thing that we didn't get from 6 years was each year was increasing control of what the teachers and principals could know, do, and be. And often, I would say, the best people left. If we start with that beginning principal, she never would have driven off 20 of her teachers. She was so upset about that. And she was so upset the way that the consultant treated her, treated everyone in the school, because she treated her teachers as professionals. And we can see this all down the line. Anna Dean spent 6 years becoming a great literacy teacher. And just when she said, "I've nailed it," it was almost the next day that, she got some of the lowest scores. She was getting like 5s across all categories. And then she gets it in, maybe 2s and 3s. And it was just such a letdown for her. And, she couldn't stomach it anymore. And so did our butterfly under the fin teacher, couldn't stomach it anymore. "I used to be in control of my teaching," she said, "but I'm not." And I was in a place where she was asking, "Well, when will we graduate from the work with the consultant?" And I just happened to be there when the principal came up with her and said, "You'll never graduate. You'll be on this reform train forever." And so on occasion, surprise turnovers did work for the best. For example, there was that one literacy person that came in, and the consultant treated him like she treated the other teachers, and he said, "I'm not taking it." And he took it right to the principal, but this time it was a different principal. And she told the consultant that she had no reason to be in teachers' business like that. And that was not what she was going to be paid for. So there was something that came out of that. But interestingly, that teacher who was sort of, quote, picked on by the consultant, he left. But you know where he left? He became head of literacy for another school district. So we're not talking about minor people here. But mostly the surprise turnovers worked out for the worst. People were leaving, but they were getting in more and more alternate certified teachers. They were getting more and more teachers that were thriving in other districts were coming in. And so there's this, you should be careful what you give away, because you won't necessarily get something better. And that's something we need to think about in education. And also, the point of this all is that no one was safe or secure in their positions, right? The first principal, she was really, really secure. But that consultant came in and just turned her life into insecurity. The principal who came in second, who was kind of her protege, started to act like her, but then he was told by this district, you have to produce some great scores or you're not going to have your position anymore. And so that took away his safety, right? And then we see butterfly under the pin taking away the safety. We see learning to teach in the eye of the storm, and even hidden in clear view with those, they got away with not using the workbooks, but the workbooks were still in the room. And there was a word that would be said on the public announcement system. If that word were ever said, the books would be flipped in every classroom. So everybody was waiting for that moment of not being safe. And in the end, even the school district was not free from intervention. In the end, the state took over the school district. So all of these things that have been happening to make that school better, that school district better, ended up being the same things that it was used to judge that it wasn't doing well. And so we have Daryl saying again, this is what we've come to. There's no way to explain it. Everything's about data. Data is God. There's nowhere to go from here. And of course, if we look across all the reforms, each one of them was standardization. Standardization of models of teaching, standardization of teacher community, standardization of readers and writers workshop, standardization of workbooks, standardization of tests, standardization of how people will get bonuses, and standardization in that everyone would be judged by data. But very little attention was paid to the well-being of teachers, and yet they're the only ones who meet students face-to-face, and they're the only ones that keep the system alive and vital in terms of the public. And so what we have here is this, everything went to standards. Nothing moved to humanism or aesthetic experience or enriched learning, integrated learning, just millions of things that we could say. These things didn't happen. And then the irony of it is that the standards were the problems, and yet the school district was in trouble because it wasn't meeting standards and it was given other standards to meet. Now, just a second here, policymakers, standardization isn't working, and we're now giving it as a solution again. So what are we to learn from these turning points? What do Prepeteia teach us? Well, in every one of the situations, there was a sudden reversal that happened to the change agents. Even the hidden and clear view change effort that the teacher aborted contributed to this government taking over the school district. Nobody, not a one, escaped the clutches of change. Change in the form of multiple peripeteias is constant, but when they happen, the shape they take are unpredictable. Predetermined changes can only enter the lifebloods of schools, teachers, and students, and they can only do this occasionally. That is, people have to willingly take them on. However, peripatetic changes, and we've especially seen this with COVID, but there's a million other examples that we could put in, that they cause chaos and they demand immediate solution. I will just end with one line. Standardization is not the answer. Thank you. I appreciate your kind invitation.